Let's have a conversation.
What's happening, everybody? Happy Saturday. Let's have a conversation. So, this is just a conversation about some of the biggest lessons that I have learned in the year 2023. Today is not technically the last day of the year for me yet because I'm in the Eastern time zone. And for me, I still have another, 34 minutes until we hit December the 31st, which will be the last day of 2023. But I wanted to jump on here early and just speak about some of the things that I've learned. So, as a lot of you know, this has been probably the most difficult year of my life. I feel like I've lived 3 different years in one because I think that when a lot of things happen, it feels like more time has gone by. The first third of my year was one thing, the second third was another thing, and we're in the last third. It's actually a trend that I had seen on TikTok too recently, where it's like my life in thirds or something like that, where you post pictures and updates and things of each third of your year. So if I were to do that, just visualize this for me. The first 4 months of this year, my dad was in hospice care. He had had several strokes. He had vascular dementia and he had Alzheimer's. So he was not well and he was staying in the nursing home. So the first third of my year, I spent a lot of time in the nursing home, going in there, bringing my ukulele and my speaker and going and speaking to him, singing for him, playing some of his favorite music. And despite the fact that at that point in time, he pretty much wasn't verbally responsive to anything that I was saying, it was just a comfort to me knowing that he was there and it was a staple of what I was doing with my time. I would finish work and whenever I could, I would just go over there, see him, speak to him, even if it was just a quick 10-15 minute drop in. It was just something that mentally made me feel just a little better. Checked on dad. Dad's okay. Um, he passed on April 16th. And then the next month, because it was actually a month after that that we actually had the funeral and the burial, the month immediately following that was chaos. So I don't know how I would be able to describe May, June, July, and August, but May or April going into May, I would describe as chaos because people were my phone. Every time I sat down, my phone was ringing. And while it was people who were well meaning, people who were trying to help, people who were trying to give words of encouragement, it's just that it's overwhelming when your phone is ringing so much. I would have to turn it off at times or turn the volume down, not look at it because it was doing too much for me. And we had frequent drop ins in our house, people stopping by, pray with us, hug us, um, give flowers, cards, and things. And it was just a period of just a lot of people and a lot of moving parts. And then immediately following the funeral, there was nothing. My phone suddenly, nobody was calling the phone. The visits were far less frequent. And then that's when everything really settled in. And I was like, well, what do I do now? For the last 3 years, I've been involved with a caretaking process. And then once he couldn't be in the house anymore, a visiting process. And it was just a lot. And then nothing. So it gave me a big amount of anxiety because during those times, and now after having spoken to many people who've been in that position, it's a common thing to lose your sense of purpose right after because you're like, this is my life for this amount of time. And now all of a sudden, it's not my life. And you always say to yourself, if I didn't have to worry about this person or take care of this person, I would be doing this, and that, and this, that, and the other. And then when you have all the free time, one, you miss them, and two, you're like, well, what do I do next? Um, so from there, I kind of secluded myself a little bit. I wasn't too available, I wasn't too public. And then I started trying to put the pieces of my life back together, which was very hard. But I did it. I started out slow where I said, okay, I have to wrap my mind around the fact that this is life. This is something that happens to people in life, and figure out what it's going to take from me to get back on my feet. And that was very difficult. Something that I learned during that time, I've always kind of had this feeling, and I've had this experience before, but when you lose somebody is when you really, really, really experience this. Some people are part-time friends, all-time friends, hard-time friends. Um, I think I thought of a more clever way to say that, and then I forgot it. But basically, what I'm trying to say is there was people who were, in my mind, I consider them a friend. And I know that for me, if I consider myself a friend of somebody, I know that when they're going through a trying time, that I am going to be there for them in any way that I can. I'm gonna, if that means giving them a call to see how they're doing, maybe dropping in for a visit. If that means, I don't know, whatever it happens to mean, that's just the type of person that I am. I'm not a friend that's only around for when times are going well. So there's a lot of people who I have been there for. There's a lot of people who I expected to be there for me in any capacity. I'm not even trying to say, I'm not even trying to define the capacity of how much they had to be there for me and how. And that is because honestly, we're all different. Some people have a big capacity to absorb somebody's pain, and some people don't. And I think it's unfair to expect everybody to be able to absorb whatever you have going on fully and completely. My only expectation personally is just that you are there in any way you can. For some people, it was just a condolences and that's it. For some people, it was nothing. They said absolutely nothing. They've said nothing to me to this day. Um, it really changed the way that I viewed the people around me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or just me starting to be more realistic about life and about relationships with people. But the people around me, it kind of closed my circle a little bit more. It made the circle a little bit smaller because I'm not somebody who wants to have people around just to have people around. Some people are like that. Some people like to have people around them all the time. They like the group, they like the crowd, they like to have a huge network. Um, I don't have problems with having a huge network either, but I just understand the roles of the people within that network, because if you sit here thinking that each of those people in that large network are all going to be there for you in some hard time, you might find yourself in my position. So that's one thing that I learned, is to know everybody's role in their life, in your life, pay attention to that and accept it. Two, the one constant in life is change. And we have to be, adaptable. The people who are most successful in life are the people who are the most adaptable. You could be doing one thing, and that one thing could be working for you. You could have your life set up a certain way. You got in the place that you wanted to be in. You got in you have the car now that you wanted to get, or you're with the person that you wanted to be with, or whatever it is. You could have everything set up right now where you're like, this is exactly where I need it to be. This is exactly where I want it to be. And you're moving along, and then something happens to one of those variables, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I was comfortable. So even in times when you are comfortable or happy with your situation, just be prepared to pivot. This is something that I was actually speaking about with my grandmother over the past weekend when I visited, where she was just saying, things could just change just like that. And she said in her lifetime, which is almost 90 years at this point, things have changed many times, and she had to pivot and shift and figure out what to do next. And I think that my life had reached a comfort zone point also, where I spent 2 to 3 years, despite the fact that some parts of those years were challenging, I was used to them. Even challenging times, you kind of get used to them after a while. And then things shifted for me, and it was a new challenge. So being adaptable to change is another thing that I learned. What else? I would say that being open to experiences and having more self-confidence can lead you in different places. I posted on my Instagram the other day that I conducted 11 interviews this year. Not interviews like job interviews, but interviews for my social media pages. And last year, I just basically started doing that. And I was asking these people from these reality TV shows for the most part. I had a couple of friends, but for the most part, I was asking these people from these reality TV shows. And when I first started asking them, I didn't really feel like I was qualified. It was just that I was interested in doing it. And I said, well, let me just ask them and see what happens. I mean, I watched a whole bunch of other people's interviews, and I said, some of these are fantastic. Some of these are not fantastic. But if they can do it, I can do it. What is it if it's just a conversation at the end of the day? And I remember last year I spoke about my experience with my interview with Ayana and how I felt really intimidated by doing the interview. Not because she did anything or said anything to me personally that would make me intimidated, but just kind of looking at her history with on television, and altercations or arguments that she had gotten into with people on shows, and just thinking to myself, this is a big personality. um this year for me, that person was Sam from The Circle. She also wasn't somebody who I had any personal interaction with that would intimidate me, but just again, somebody that I knew or from what I saw had a massive personality to where I was like, well, what am I going to say or what am I going to look like sitting next to this person? But, actually asking for that interview, getting the interview, meeting up and realizing again, this is just a conversation and that is something that I'm good at. And if I had not stepped out of the comfort zone, I wouldn't have discovered that this is a lane that I'm pretty good at and it's something that I enjoy doing. I really enjoy doing it actually. It's been a little bit of a tough time getting some of these interviews, but I do really enjoy doing them. Another thing, betting on yourself is the biggest and the best gamble that you can ever do. Not everybody is built that way. Not everybody thinks that way. Not everybody will take a chance on themselves and their dreams. I have been that person for many years, in terms of somebody who has been worried about going full force with my dreams because people have told me that's not practical. And it's the truth. It's not practical to do things that are out of the norm. It's not practical to see the way that something has been done before and not replicate that exact same thing. But I will say, just because it has been done before and it has been done that way the most does not mean that that is the best way to do it. That's my personal opinion. So if you have an idea of the way that you want to see things go for yourself and for your life, take the reins. It's okay to take a blueprint of something and build upon it or change it. And it's also okay to completely change course or shift course in terms of you've seen something done like this and you're like, I think that this other way works for me best. Give it a try. If it doesn't work for you, try something else. Try something else. Try something else. Keep trying until you succeed. I feel like some of the most successful people have tried the most things. I've said this before. Some people luck out and maybe try one thing and then they instantly find success at that one thing. But most of us do not find instant success. So we have to try, fail, try, fail, try, fail. Keep trying and keep failing until ultimately we find the thing that works for us. Do I have one or two more? Maybe one more thing. And I might hop on here at some point tomorrow, but I wanted to get this in today. I guess the last thing that I would probably say is you don't need the belief of somebody else to start on something that you believe in. The foundation of everything that you do is self-belief. Even if you have a team, even if you have people who are in your corner who are, and I don't just mean cheerleaders in your corner. I mean people who are actively in your corner, not just cheering for you, but also actively doing things to help you succeed. You have to be the engine. You have to be the one that believes in yourself and your dream the most before it's ever going to take off the ground. So, if I don't hop back on here tomorrow, just wishing everybody a happy, prosperous, and successful 2024. And thank you to everyone who continues to support me, my movement, my page, And I hope you all have an amazing evening, and we'll talk again soon.